Hello, Super Geeks. In this video, we're going to take a look at a tool called nmap. And nmap is a very, very useful tool for systems administrators, network administrators, and security people. I will preface the very beginning of this video, though, too, with the fact that this is a tool that often is also used by hackers. So in a lot of systems, they have policies not to run this program, and you could get yourself into trouble if you're using it on a system where you don't have permission to be doing the kinds of work that nmap does do. So make sure that you have the rights to do scans of network systems before you do any of this work. nmap has a lot of things it can do, and we're only going to touch on a very few things. But basically with nmap, what you're doing is nmap is network mapping. You're able to take a look and you're able to scan across the network for a lot of different things on different computers that are on the system. At the very beginning of the video, I mentioned that this is really good for systems administrators and network administrators and security people. Over the years, I've had situations where we've suspected that there may be machines on our network that were not originally authorized. And we could use nmap to then find these rogue systems. Sometimes you might, in a large company, have a department manager that just goes out and buys a computer, or they might even just use a workstation as a server, get a copy of Linux, get a copy of Windows Server, or maybe even set up like Windows Workstation just with sharing and set up a rogue server somewhere on the system. Or sometimes you might find some employees that are using a computer set up so that they can do something like maybe share movie files or music files or something that they're not supposed to be doing at work. So you need to be able to scan through looking for these systems so that you can shut them down. Sometimes you may need to make sure that the firewalls are set up correctly on a server. If you're using server firewalls on all your machines, to make sure you don't have ports open that you're not supposed to. And nmap can do all of this kind of work. So let's take a look at just some of the basics on using nmap. The very first one that we're going to do is I'm going to scan this computer that I'm on. And so I put nmap and then the IP address of this computer. Now, obviously, this could be any computer on the network. This happens to be this particular computer. So I put nmap and the IP address, and I hit enter, and it'll run against it. When we're looking at the output now, what we see is latency for how long it took to get to the particular computer. In this case, it's very fast because it's the local computer. And all the network ports that it sensed that were open. In this case, we're running SSH, and we also happen to be running HTTP at port 80. There's also port 8000, HTTP-alt is how it's listing the service. And that one in this case is where it is running Splunk, and that's the port that's open for that. And then 8089 is open, and the service is listed as unknown. So looking at this, I might go, I don't remember opening 8089. I need to take a closer look at that, and then I can start drilling down into that. So this is a way you can check an individual computer. Now, I'm going to go ahead and up arrow, and let's say I want to scan an entire network segment to see what's happening. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a 0 at the end of this with a /24 because this particular subnet is subnet masked for 24-bit. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter and let it scan. Now this is going to take a few moments to go through all the possibilities, the 255 different machines, and it comes back, and now it brings back all of the systems that it was able to find. And in this case, it found two systems. It found the system that I'm on, and it also happened to find a printer that we have on here. And if you notice, there's a lot of ports open on this printer. So I've been able to find the devices that are on this network. Now, along with doing a single IP address or doing like a network range, we could also go through and we can select just several different IP addresses. So what I'm going to do now is do nmap nmap 172.16.42.17. And if you notice at the top of the report, we also have 172.16.42.2 as the other computer on the network. And I go ahead and hit enter. And now instead of going through and doing the entire series of 255 addresses, it does just those 2 addresses. Now another one we could do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take and go back to just my own computer here. And I'm going to add a -A to this next search. And I'm going to run this. And while this is running, one of the things, because of the fact that, like I mentioned at the beginning, can be used by hackers. If you have intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems, this very well could trigger those. And this is a good way to check to make sure they're working, because this should trigger them. If it doesn't, then you need to take a look at your IDS and IPS systems to see what's going on. Intrusion detection would detect that you're doing this work. Intrusion prevention should do something to shut it down on you. Obviously here, I don't have this going on. So we're not getting shut down and I don't have any alerts coming through, but on a bigger network, you should have some sort of a IDS IPS system in place to sense these kind of things. Now looking here, we have a much longer output on the machine than we did before, where we just simply listed the open ports, and it's telling us more information about what's on them. So like the SSH, it's OpenSSH, and it's the Ubuntu version. Gives us version information. It gives us the SSH host key. This is the public key, obviously not the private key. It tells us our Apache version, 2.4.18, and it's in Ubuntu build again. And here, port 8000, it's Splunk. And then it tells us here for 8089, it also happens to be Splunk as well. So now I've got a better idea what's going on here, and it tells me that the OS is Linux. So I know this is a Linux box, and it gives me a lot more information about what's going on the system with that -A switch. Now sometimes you might want to just simply find out what servers are up on a system. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change to a -P, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a 0/24 in here again, and this is going to scan the entire subnet, but it's just doing a very simple basic check for latency and to make sure it's up and running. It's like a ping check, basically, is what it's doing on the entire system, and it comes back, tells us the IP addresses it found, and the latency for those IP addresses. Another one that I'm going to show you real quick is if you're looking for a particular port. Maybe you just want to simply find out how many web servers are out on your system. So I'm going to go ahead and instead of the -P, I'm going to put in a little p and then 80, which is the web port. And I'm going to go ahead and run this one, and it's going to look at the IP addresses only at port 80. So you'll be able to go through. In this case, I gave it the range, and both these machines do have a web server on port 80 running. So you'd be able to say, show me on this particular network segment all of the web servers that are running on port 80. You can give it a series of different ports as well, and take a look at that. You can say, I want to find UDP ports, or I want to find TCP ports, or both. So this is just some of the basic information that you can find out with nmap. Like I said, there's a lot of different switches, taking a look at a lot of other information. So it's a very, very valuable tool for systems admins, network admins, security personnel. But once again, I give you the caveat that you need to make sure that you have permission to run this on the network systems. And if the networks have been set up correctly with IDS and IPS, they will sense that you are doing this work. So use nmap with a little bit of caution, but I think you're going to find it a very, very important tool in your toolbox.